I would consider myself a tone chaser, definitely. I used to not care about it as much when I was younger, but then I didn't realize how important it was to have a good sound. And I want to have a good sound all the time. I don't know if I would consider myself a golden ear. I'd say pretty good, but not that crazy good. I do think I've added up in the past the dollar amount that I've spent on gear, either if it's a piece of gear that I thought I needed for doing music or that I just wanted because I like something different. I've for certain with music made many times over back the amount of money that I've spent on gear. Like, not even a question about it. I have several guitar heroes. Joe Satriani is a big influence. Michael Hedges, the acoustic fingerstyle guitar player. I liked Van Halen a good bit. I never really tried to emulate him a whole lot, but I've really liked a lot of what he did. I would love to, meet some of the others like Andy Summers and John Petrucci and stuff. But I've met Tommy Emmanuel. Eric Johnson has got to be my number one. The first time I met Eric was in Lafayette. It was called Grant Street Dance Hall. Very gracious. Didn't seem like he was trying to get me out of there, like, go away, kid, you bother me. Nothing like that. I asked him, what is it that you've done to get to where you were? He says he feels like the audience's energy gets ramped up a little more when he just tries to do the raw, unrehearsed thing, as opposed to the practiced lick that he did in the rehearsal room. And I always thought that was really cool. I just really like that lead tone of his, this violin sounding velvet thing. There's not a lot of pick attack noise. It's just really smooth. I find it really unique. It's very typical for me to hear guitar players who get an amp with lots of treble, lots of pick attack, and that screaming, typical guitar. And that's cool too, but I wanted to do something a little different. There's his technique, which is, the other 50%, but the sound itself, the number one ingredient is an old vintage Marshall Plexi. He's used ones from different years, maybe 67 or 68 or 69. But I didn't want to get a vintage one because I want an amp that's made today. If it blows up or something, I can go get a new one and it won't cost $5,000. So I found this company called Rocket Retro. It's just this one guy. His name is Kevin. Approachable, nice guy. Answered a bazillion questions that I had. I got the amp and, was just blown away. I finally got to play on a Plexi that was, the hallmark of many of my favorite guitar tones of all time. Something that matters equally as much as the amp itself is the cabinet and speakers that you run it through. The Mesa 412, it's a great cabinet. It's extremely powerful. I wanted to get something that kind of looked like an old Blues Breaker style 212 cabinet. I saw this guy's company come up, J Design, and again, we're talking about another company. It's I'm pretty sure just run by him. His name's Jeff. I saw nothing but good about both his attention to detail and the craftsmanship, just the look of the cabinets. You just look at it like, wow, that is a very aesthetically pleasing cabinet, but then also sonically too. And I wanted something that had speakers in it that were a little more like old greenbacks, which are, in a lot of circles typically thought to be the ultimate vintage Marshall type speaker. I didn't want to buy vintage greenbacks because they cost a lot. And again, I kind of like to get modern gear because if something happens to your vintage gear, there goes your sound. He told me about Warehouse guitar speakers, which again is another very reasonably priced company. And he told me a good pairing of speakers. I got one that's called an ET65, and then the other one is called the Invader 50. And they're both kind of more smoothly voiced in the treble end. It kind of attenuates it a little bit, which is great for that smooth kind of sound that's not going to, you know, pierce your ears too much. Found out about a company called Fulton Web Amplifiers, and specifically I kept seeing Bill Webb come up everywhere. Most currently, he's been Eric Johnson's amp technician. He goes on tour with him. He's very intimate with the knowledge of Eric's amp stuff and his effects and everything. Eric runs several amps and uses each amp for a totally different, you know, its own sound. They actually have built a few amps that are basically like signature Eric Johnson amplifiers. They have this one called the Scrumptious Monkey, but then they also built an amp called the Viola, which is basically an amp that's meant to do the Eric Johnson lead tone, and built for Eric to where if he wanted to not have to take his vintage Marshall somewhere, he could take the Viola or the Scrumptious Monkey. Looked on the website and saw that Bill Webb was the in-house amp specialist repair modification guy for Austin Vintage Guitars. The moment that I learned that, I also saw that Eric, who was currently on tour with Mike Stern doing a tour for their Eclectic CD, just so happened to have a Bastrop, Texas stop as their last stop of the tour, which I saw was not far away from Austin Vintage Guitars, and I was like, oh man, maybe I could take this new Plexi to Bill if he would be up for checking it out with me, and I'll go check out the Eric Johnson Mike Stern show while I'm there. And I had a friend in Austin I could stay with. I'm like, oh, this has got to work out. It was just a night of unapologetic guitar wizardry, and for anybody who's somebody that likes to see people that just really know how to play their instrument, it was the cat's pajamas. And it was funny because before I really even said much to him, he looks at me and he goes, so are you a musician? And I was like, woohoo! He thinks I'm a musician without even knowing a whole lot. So that was kind of fun. And then we just talked a little bit about guitar, and I told him, you know, how much he's an inspiration to what I've done, and I'd like to do something like him one day. And, you know, he was just really supportive of everything. I took the amp to Bill. You know, Kevin did a great job with it. I'm going for something really specific, and Bill told me he, you know, wanted to see what he thought. And he opened it up, and he just thought to get an Eric Johnson type sound, it would change a couple of little things around. It was so crazy to just see right before my eyes this, you know, already great amp really start focusing in more on a sound that I'd been wanting to get for ever since I started playing the guitar. And Bill's like a mad scientist. Oh, don't let that cord drape over that one, or, you know, you might want to put some electrical tape on that thing that's sitting there. And just, it was so cool to see how much everything mattered, and just a great experience. I'm really excited about the future with what I'll do with it. Again, not because I'm trying to be a copy of Eric's music, but because I really like that sound in how I want to apply it to my music. It's just a great sound that even if you turn it up really loud, it's still it feels good. It's like it's massaging your brain or something. Let me put it this way. I can play that sound in a church and grandmas don't want to excommunicate me. So
Calais, how do you call the kitty?